So here we are, refurbished, don't demolish. We're looking at a video made yesterday, 6th of April 2022 on the Clapham Park Estate. This is on the corner of Poinders Avenue and Clarence Avenue. This is where Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing are felling 347 mature trees in all, and they're doing it with great gusto and abandon with the approval of the London Borough of Lambeth. And as you can see, we've got structurally sound housing here which could have been refurbished. The reason that this is happening is that this whole scheme is based on the idea that the cost of it will be covered largely by the sale of houses on the open market. And this all dates back to 2006 and the stock transfer of this huge estate, this Lambeth Council estate, over to a housing association. And this is based on the idea that you have to increase the density really to get your money back, and that's based on the huge land values in London. And that's why Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing say they can't change their plans. They can't build around these trees. They can't add to the buildings that are already here because they really need to get their money's worth. And that is why they're smashing up everything and cutting down hundreds of mature trees. So this is a very risky strategy on one level because you've had the pandemic and you've had Brexit, and although land values are high, London is now littered with half empty and completely empty luxury flats and office blocks. And the last thing we need is to add to that huge tally of expensive empty buildings that nobody can really afford. These trees here, they've been pollarded, and they've been pollarded so brutally that they really look like lollipop sticks more than anything else. And Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing are saying that they're doing this trying to get in before the nesting season. Well, it's early April. The buds on the trees would have come out if the branches were still there, and this would have been the time when birds would have been nesting. So this is a bit like knocking down a house before somebody moves in. There's never really a good time to cut down a mature tree. If you look at the biodiversity, all the animals that can live in and around that tree, nothing can live here, especially if you're cutting it down. Why they're doing it now is anyone's guess. But what we should know is that you'll hear Lambeth Council saying that, well, we're planting, or the housing association is going to plant back mature saplings which are 4 to 5 meters tall. But the trees that we're losing here are 80 to 150 years old. So it's going to be another 100 years before any new tree, if it survives, has any chance of being, a carbon offsetting to the same level that these trees would have been. And that's going to be well beyond my lifetime and the lifetime of the councillors and the people that are behind these decisions. So we are supposed to be cutting our carbon emissions across the world by half by the end of this decade if we're going to have any hope of keeping global warming to 1.5 degrees. And if we carry on like this, we're never going to manage it. You'll also hear councillors saying it's too expensive to refurbish houses like this, which makes you wonder, how come there are council flats which were sold under right to buy, which have been beautifully done up, which are now changing hands for millions of pounds? Why is there a marketing suite here? Because this whole idea is based on the fact that money talks. And all over London, you can see, homelessness, refugees who are desperately trying to escape war, people that are in fuel poverty, people that are suffering from the cost of living crisis, and expensive flats do not answer their problems. This is a flawed model, basically. And any tenants lucky enough to move into a new flat here will find, if it's social housing, they're going to have higher rents, they're going to have service charges, and they'll probably be locked into an expensive contract for heating. So that is not solving the housing crisis in London. these are all flawed models, and the other flawed model that Lambeth have tried to use before now is the PFI schemes, such as the one at Myattsfield North, which has created a huge mess, and again, which is leaving people in a situation where they simply can't afford the rent and they simply can't afford the bills, and they can't afford to live in buildings that are shoddily built. Whether these buildings will be shoddily built, I don't know, but this is not a like-for-like replacement of council housing. Council housing is a secure tenancy where your landlord is the council and your rents are carefully controlled and you're not hit with extra service charges. So this is a really poor way of providing social housing. If you look at the amount of social housing in Lambeth, it's actually going down. It's been going down for decades, and that's because it's been sold off, it's been demolished. It's seen as a quick asset stripping exercise, a quick way to balance the books. And this is really not the way forward.